So you have the site, so this is a site force diagram, right? And so this is basically showing the site of Kirkwood. And so you can see with these diagrams here, what I did was I looked at the relationship between all these buildings around my site. So this is basically the extrusion of the site setbacks and the max height. And basically use the sun to actually carve into the building to still allow sunlight to reach the neighboring structures without my building, taking away the sunlight because my structure is too tall. Then you can see here some quick programmatic analysis of like private public spaces and then the library residential spaces. And then this facade addition based on this vacuum form study over here. So these are all the study models for it. So that's that sun carving and then you contour it to create floor plans for it and then section studies as well. And then you can see here, so this is a programmatic analysis. I used a noun and verb matrix. We were looking at the nouns of the programs and looking at the activities that happen with the programs, and they try to create different spatial activities like quiet zones, medium zones, loud zones, and then how that relates back to the program that we're designing. And then we have make, study, research spaces, trying to redefine the idea of a library so that we're actually attending to the needs of libraries now versus what libraries were 10, 20 years ago. So we have the different floor plans, level -0, ground floor, first floor, and the second floor. So the first and second floor are more of the residential floors. And so basically what you get to see is how I actually started combining these two spaces, so the residential and the library space to create this courtyard space above it to try to create a continuation of that street activity. So to bring that public back to the most public space, that library space, and still give that protectiveness and that kind of area for the residential spaces. Like you say, you can just see how that skylight comes down and shoots out into this multi-use atrium area. Just to really start bridging these connections between all these two spaces. And then you get to see how this facade or this structural system on this outside here, this structural system, so it begins to wrap around this residential space. So it plays this thing as being the double roof for the residential area. So double roof allows it for be less radiation to come into the residential ceilings. Then it places this digital facade on that front part. And then it places the ceiling or the entry ceiling and the ceiling for the library. And then it becomes a skylight as well. And this on the back side, which you can see with this model here, that structural system comes down and actually becomes the balcony spaces for the residential spaces. And so it does the same thing where it places that double roof, wraps down, become the balcony spaces, and then comes back in to then become the structure for the skylight. And then you can also see how it wraps. So it wraps across this middle area. You can see here, and you can see here. And you can see in the model here, where it then breaks up the sky. So it's kind of like the same thing as there's this pavilion by Frank Gehry, the famous architect, where he used a structural system to kind of break up the sky. And you can also see the same system used at the airport, Atlanta airport. Mm-hmm. And so also the grid that's created for the structural system has direct relationships to the column and truss system inside the library. And also, like I said, the residential balcony units. So yeah, that's just like a quick. Oh, and also, even though it might not matter, but you can see, and this is how I actually took them through the thing. After the beginning parts that I talked about the program stuff, I said, okay, let's look at the elevation. So what you get to see is these huge gestures. So you have this big facade and you have these two big towers almost on this front part. But then what you see is this entry. The library entry is so small, right? It's about this tall. So basically what I did is I brought the library entry back down to human scale. And so by bringing it back down to human scale, let's just get some type of importance versus how big stuff is on this outside. And then so as soon as I said that, I said, okay, then let's take a look inside. And then their mouths dropped. This part broke, but then their mouths dropped. And they were just sitting there. So what you got to see was them just watching them dance. So what we talked about is expansion and compression. So this front part is super big. So kind of expand the viewer's eyes. And then you see this entry space. Like I said, the door is small, and then this space is really small too. So that's that compression, and then it comes out to this skylight that then is expanding that space. That's the expansion. Mm-hmm. So this play between levels. You can see in this rendering here,
Mm-hmm.
how different, this doesn't feel like a library.
It doesn't?
It doesn't feel like a library, and that's the whole point. People don't go to libraries no more like that.
Uh-uh.
So how do you get people into libraries? Or even when people do go to libraries, they don't really just go for books. They go to study, they go to use their laptop, they go to use all this other stuff. So finding ways to encourage the involvement into libraries and let it become the social fabric for the communities.
I'm very proud of you, Sean.
And then you can see, so there's like
So
swarm.
this is like the actual living space.
So that's zoomed in of one of the units. So it's a section cut, and then to see how light comes in place, and then also to see that relationship that I was talking about, how that's structured
That's
against the elderly.
you just missing the bathroom.
Oh no, that's not the whole. It's cut here.
Oh, okay.
So look.
Okay,
It's a
I'll look
section cut
when you-
model.
Yeah, I'll look when you get
So basically, it's cut from here.
Oh, okay,
So
okay.
this is
So
whole
you,
unit still.
oh,
But
okay.
it's zoomed in, so you just kind of focus on that area.
Mm-hmm.
But you can see, so there's little things. So like even
This
this
is
move
balcony,
here.
yeah.
Well, so this is the corridor space.
Okay,
right? So
okay. So
because
that's
it's
how
the
you
most
enter.
public space,
Right.
by putting the corridor space here, it gives the residences, for one, it's kind of sensitive, still having that privacy. And then also by putting these solid wooden banisters here, so visually you get this visual privacy, so you still feel like that's your space. And you also see, you get to see in this section here. So light is like always a big thing. So in more active areas, you might want more light, and more less active areas, you might not want